The play on the field, the court, and the ice is just one part of sports. Behind every game are the people hard at work so we can enjoy the action. They're the owners, administrators, agents, broadcasters, and vendors who bring the games to life. Meet them when you go Behind the Game with Patrick Klinger and Dave Bowden.
Welcome to another episode of Behind the Game, presented by KLN Family Brands, makers of great products like Sweet Chaos Popcorn and Wily Wallaby Licorice and Nutrisource Pet Foods. I'm Patrick Klinger, President of Agile Marketing Partners. My regular co-host, Dave Bowden, is out stomping grapes in wine country in California. I hope he remembers I like expensive Cabernet. So, filling in is my dear friend, Jeff Wright. Jeff, welcome to Behind the Game, your maiden voyage.
Yeah, Patrick, thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
this
fantastic.
is a great honor.
We're going to talk about something that both of us love, and that's the sport of golf and the 3M Open.
Yeah, well, golf in Minnesota we know is such a precious thing given the limited time we have here.
Yeah, it's I have a love affair with golf. Unfortunately, it's a one-way love affair. I love the game. It doesn't love me so much.
You and me both. So, Mike, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You know the 3M Open's right around the corner. You spent a lot of time working with the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Lynx, working on the partnership side there. And as you relate back on that experience working in pro basketball, what experiences, most directly relate to running a golf championship? And what was maybe the process that said, hey, I'd be interested in going down a different avenue into golf?
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. I think I would say the similarities that I saw inside of the NBA and WNBHF that relates to what we're trying to do up in Blaine for the PGA Tour is really, it comes back to the fans, the fan experience. And what is your experience as a consumer going to be at the 3M Open? Just like we were so laser focused on that in the corporate partnership world at the Timberwolves and Lynx and the fan world at the Wolves and Lynx, it's the same thing that holds true at the 3M Open. It's expensive to go to these tournaments, right? It's expensive to do any sporting event. And so that's not lost on us by any means. And so we're laser focused on what that experience is going to be. So I would say just, overarching first and foremost, that's where my head is at when you ask me that question. As far as why I made the move, transparently, I thought I was going to retire at the Timberwolves and Lynx. I started as a salesperson. I went to be the director of sales, then for 4 years as the vice president of corporate partnerships. I had three incredible mentors, I should say, that I was looking at to go along that path. And when I was presented the opportunity at the 3M Open to go and lead that event, I looked at it from two lenses. What is it from a professional standpoint, and what is it from a personal? And from a professional standpoint, it gave me the opportunity to sort of be the head, right? Which I think, if we're honest, we all want to try and see if we can do it and see how we can affect those around us in a culture and how we can move the business forward. So that was one reason. On the personal side, I'm a dad of four. We reside in the Blaine area, which is where the tournament is held. I was actively involved in coaching baseball, basketball, and it sometimes got to be a little bit of a rat race. You had to leave Target Center at 4:17 p.m. to make it by 4:59, scarfed out some food, get to the ball field or the gym. And I thought if I could have my personal and professional world in a 4-minute radius, that might not be so bad. And so we decided to take the leap as a family in 2019, and here we are almost 6 years later.
Mike, you took over the helm of the 3M Open just about the time that COVID was really taking hold. And I think the first tournament that you oversaw had no fans. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Surreal, honestly, but really, Patrick, it was a blessing in disguise. It gave me the opportunity to see what a PGA Tour tournament is like, operate one, and not have to worry about what the fan experience is like. So for somebody that came from the world of basketball, I'm a baseball player by nature. I, like you, enjoy the game and doesn't enjoy me back most of the time. It was a chance for me to see, okay, this is how the PGA Tour runs it, but more importantly, how we would run it from Monday through Wednesday. So if you're not familiar with how a PGA Tour tournament operates, we, the host organization, operate the tournament Monday through Wednesday, sponsor functions, pro-ams, all of that. Once the tournament starts on Thursday, PGA Tour takes over and runs the competition. I had no idea how to do that. I had no idea how to do Monday through Wednesday. And while we didn't have fans or pro-ams, I did understand how we would get something ready for a prep tent, for concessions, for the players. I did understand what the player experience was like when they came in. And so that was just a huge blessing in disguise for me to see that, so that when in 2021, when fans came back, it gave me the opportunity to say, oh, this is a whole year under my belt. Now I know what we can do.
Right. Corporate sponsorship, we know, is a key part of all sports, golf included. With your experience in corporate partnerships at the Timberwolves, how has that influenced your approach in growing 3M, the 3M Open, and its relationships with its partnerships?
Yeah, I would tell you that 90% of our revenue at the 3M Open comes from corporate partnerships, hospitality, the sale of pro-ams. The PGA Tour has a vernacular for it. It's called SSI. So 90% of our revenue comes from that. The other 10% is ticket sales, merchandise, concessions, and all of that. So it was imperative to have sort of that backbone to understand how we were going to continue to drive revenue. And, a tournament that this year will be our 7th year on the PGA Tour. You think about the Waste Management Phoenix Open, that's in year 93, the Memorial, all of these legacy tournaments that have had years and years of experience in doing this. At one time, they were sitting here in year 4, 5, 6 saying, how are we going to move business forward, right? And the way to do that is through corporate partnerships. And the way to do that is through relationships. And so how do you show value to the partner by the on-course experience? If you are, a product-based company and you're in the concession stand, how are you showing value around sales and what the experience is like for the fans that are consuming that product? And so I think it was really important to have my background to be able to do that. Our sales and activation staff that is at the 3M Open have background on the team side as well. And I feel like we've been able to bring that to life at the 3M Open. Now, we have a long way to go. We're getting bigger and better each and every year. But when you go to these tournaments like the WM Phoenix Open or the Memorial or the Charles Schwab Challenge, which has been in existence for 40 plus years, you walk around and you say, wow, these guys, this is a pretty big event, right? And we're getting there. And so I think, we're learning every year. We learn from our partners every year to say, when they tell us we should be doing this, I have a couple ideas. And if you're not listening, you're not being a good partner. So I think my answer is we're doing well and we have a ways to go.
There's a significant charitable component to the tournament as well. Can you share a little bit about how that works?
For sure. For those that aren't familiar, the PGA Tour and all of its tournaments are a nonprofit. And so we operate as the 3M Open Fund, which is a nonprofit. So all the revenues flow into the 3M Open Fund, and they pay off the operating expenses of the tournament. And hopefully at the end, there's about $1 million left over that we then give to 20 to 25 charities. Since 2019, we've been able to give over $8.5 million to about 30 plus charities, which has been wonderful. The PGA Tour in all of its tournaments, all 46 tournaments since its inception, has given over $4.2 billion to charities, which is more than the other 4 sports leagues combined from that particular vertical. And so that's at the root of what the PGA Tour and its tournaments do. And so for us, we partner with great charities like First Team Minnesota. We partner with M Health Fairview Masonic Children's Hospital. We partner with Greater Twin Cities United Way and a number of others that really are trying to drive the mission of positively affecting youth and young adults. And so for us, our goal by the end of 2025 is to have positively affected over 1.5 million youth and young adults since 2019, and we're headed towards that. If we can continue that, it's important to 3M, it's important to us as a host organization. We do a number of things throughout the course of the week that ladder into that mission and get youth out to the course and in other areas that we give and serve. And so it is truly what we do and what all PGA Tour tournaments do, and that isn't going to change for us this year.
So as you think about the corporate sponsorship landscape here, especially in Minnesota, we've got the Twins, the Wild, the Vikings, the Timberwolves, the Lynx, the Loons. You have the Gophers, right? Super competitive market from that standpoint. How do you position yourself in this market? How do you create your value proposition in such a crowded space?
Can I add the Frost, Aurora, all the other events? It's wonderful, number one, to have all of these events in our market and these teams in our market. I think that's what makes the Twin Cities so amazing place to live, work, and play. But it is extremely competitive. I would say that our value proposition is twofold. Number one, we're the only event where kids 15 and under are free. So if you're 15 and under, you come to the Threem Open, you don't pay a cent. And that's really rare, right? That is a PGA Tour wide initiative, and so that's great. So we are trying to lean into families more each and every year. And this year it's no different. Sunday's going to be our family day. We're going to have a lot of the mascots from the teams you mentioned come to the Threem Open. We're going to have Blippi and Mika. I don't know if you have younger kiddos. They're YouTube sensations. They have 23 million subscribers. So when we announced that, the market lost its mind, and so I think things like that where we're trying to really lean into families and provide something for them on Sunday is a value proposition for us. And then I'll just say that we have 6.5 miles of front row seats, and that's really rare as well, right? You go to a Timberwolves game, my former employer, which by the way, it's really hard to get a front row courtside seat now, but if you do, you're paying quite a bit of money, and good for them. It's been a long time since I think you could say that, and for us, you can pay a $65 fan pass, and you can be on one of 18 holes and be right up against the ropes, standing right next to Tony Finau or Tom Kim or Sam Burns or Wyndham Clark or Max Homa this year, and have that front row seat and walk all 18 holes with him, and more than likely be right along the ropes. And so if you're a golf crazy fan, that's really cool. If you're a kid, that's really cool. If you're what I call the golf curious fan, and you go to Top Golf every once in a while, you go to 5-Iron, these other places, these simulators, that's really cool for you too. And so you can experience that in a really unique way where you're right there and you can hear the conversation between player and caddy. And I think that is something that is really rare with our game.
Mike, I don't have to tell you that the PGA Tour landscape has changed significantly in the last couple of years. Obviously, the emergence of LIV and the departure of a lot of top-flight players to that tour. How is that impacting you, the Threem Open, and your ability to lure players to the tournament?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if it necessarily inhibits our chance to get the players. I think where it hurts us is from a fan perspective, and I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, so take the job, COVID happens the next year. The next year, this LIV Golf Tour starts up, and we're like, oh, so this is what this job's going to be, right? And I think like anything, you adapt to what's happening. And so from a LIV perspective, we had to adapt around, okay, in that first year, we lost 14 players that were in our field last year. And that's quite a bit. And you talk about players like Bryson DeChambeau and Phil Mickelson, who was a fan favorite here in 2019. And that hurts, and that stings. And where that hurts is on the fan side. And what I would say, from both the golf curious, that if you don't know golf super well, you certainly know who Phil Mickelson and Bryson DeChambeau is. And if you're a golf nut, you really like those two guys because if you're a scientific guy like Bryson was, you really want to follow Bryson, And so I think that's where we saw the hurt. Moving forward, I think what the PGA Tour has done really well has started to identify and highlight the next crop of who is coming up. And for us, as a tournament that is challenged from a schedule perspective, we're right after the British Open, and so that's a hindrance for us because if you are playing in the Open Championship, you got to get on a plane Sunday night or Monday morning, fly overseas, get to the TPC Twin Cities, get settled in, get a practice round, and then, you start playing the Pro-Am and then the tournament the next day. And so you don't have that time to catch your breath. Now, by the same token, we provide every accommodation for these players to make sure that they have a great time and try to understand that, they're going to be taken care of when they come here. But it's hard to get these players to commit to that, knowing that they have the opportunity to play the week after that. But what the tour has done really well is highlighted the young players. And so for us, we lean into that. So you can see from our sponsor exemptions this year, we're going to have the number 1 and the number 2 players that were on PGA Tour University this past summer. We're going to have a few sponsor exemptions, one who won the NCAA championship this year. And so players or fans will see these up and coming players. Now, will they become the next Bryson or the next Phil? Don't know. But I think they have the chance to be, and they always come to the Threem Open. That's something that's really good for us. I'd also just say that where we're placed in the schedule has been a boon for us because now the tour has said you have to finish in the top 70 in order to make it to keep your card for next year. You have to be in the top 100, and to be in the top 70, you get to be in all the signature events. And so that is important because that's where all the money is. And so now if you're anywhere from 60 to 125, going into the Open Championship or our tournament, you're going to play us because there's only our tournament and one other tournament after that in order to keep that status. And so that's been good for us as well. So has Liv hurt? It has. Are we adapting to it? We are.
So the tournament will be here before we know it. And as you're
Something
out
like that,
walking the course, watching the fans, watching the players, is there a moment during that weekend where you're able to just step back and say, man, this is why we do this?
Yes, 100%. It happens during the week, and it happens, I think, really after the tournament as well. I think where I get the biggest impact on that, Jeff, is at our check presentations for our charitable partners. And when we choose a charity partner, we don't just say we're going to partner with you because you do great things and we want to hand you a check. We want to make sure that there's a boots on the ground volunteer effort for us to do that as well. And that's usually where we'll do that check presentation. So if we go to a water conservation partner, we'll make sure that there's some activity for us there. With First Team Minnesota, with ML Fairview, there's an activity there. And then also there's circularity there. We have to understand and be introduced to their corporate partner base and their donor base so that we can then approach them about a potential partnership, because then there's more revenue that flows in and potentially more dollars that get put back into the community through charitable efforts. So I think that happens after that, most importantly, but during the tournament, 100%. I think, when you see kids in the autograph zone getting autographs from the players who are amazing at that, it sort of brings it full circle. I think when you see some of our kiddos that come for Golf for All Day on Tuesday, July 22nd this year, 550 kiddos from the Twin Cities come and experience golf for the very first time. And they're like, this is golf, because we have the Minnesota Timberwolves and Lynx DJ there. We have a bunch of athletes and former athletes and celebrities there, influencers that are golfing and explaining what the game of golf has done for them outside of just being a really cool sport for them, but how it's opened doors from a business and professional perspective. And they can see that that's an opportunity for them if they get involved in the game. That's what it's all about, because again, you're opening just sort of a new mindset for these kiddos that might be thinking of it as, quite honestly, a boring old white man's game. And it's not that anymore. It's fashion, it's music, it's a hip sport. And I think that has been a really cool thing that we're doing to just introduce the game of golf to kiddos that may never have experienced it before.
Do you sense that, Liv is gone, sort of the complete opposite direction, right? I mean, the guys are wearing shorts, there's music, there's the talking while shots are being hit. Very different than the PGA Tour experience. Do you think that some of those things from the Liv will sort of creep into PGA at some point?
It has already, Patrick. I would tell you that, for us, the Stilly Party Deck that is on hole 18, we have a DJ there every day from our friends at iHeartMedia that play music from 12 to 5. I only get told once per day from PGA Tour rules officials to turn the music down. But it's a party up there. And that we never would even had that idea, to be perfectly honest with you, right, about playing music. Certainly a deck and free beverage and food, but nothing around music. We have music in Fan Village. We have music in Northwoods, 2 areas that 4 years ago we probably would not have played, because we wanted to preserve the sanctity of the quietness of a tee shot. I think players expect a little bit of, a little bit of noise now, right? And ironically, Happy Gilmore 2 comes out during Dream Open Week this year, July 25th. And so, sometimes it's like Happy's like, hey, let's go, let's make a little noise here, and I think players are getting more comfortable around that. I think what they also know is that it's introducing a whole new fan to the game, and that's good for them.
So you mentioned earlier 6.5 miles of front row seats. You talk about all this awesome fan engagement, which is great to see. However, with that, I don't think you have to look very far to see a lot of actions in other sports where we've seen player hostility moments take place. How do you balance trying to keep that engagement, having kids have a great time, but also looking at this from a 30,000-foot view and making sure it's a safe, fun experience for everyone?
We're not worried about safety because security is there, right? Especially with the marquee groups. Like, we have security there. But I hear and can appreciate your question around, how do you preserve just the etiquette, right? And the rules of that. My simple answer, whether you like it or not, is it's just different in golf. I've been a part of the NBA and WNBA for 13 years. The fan base is a little bit different. I don't know if it's because it's outside, it just is different. I may regret saying this because this year might be different, but we haven't had a lot of that, honestly. I think you've probably seen some of the videos in other tournaments where they'll say something, especially during a Ryder Cup year, like, "Oh, you blew it," and the player might say, "Hey, forget you." I think we've seen some of that, but that's really been the extent of it, Jeff. And again, I'm going to find some wood and knock on it, but that's been, it hasn't been really prevalent for us. At the same time, I think we're hypersensitive around that and have plans in place if we do deal with unruly fans, but we have not seen a lot of that in the 6 years or so of the 3M Open.
Speaking of having plans in place, Minnesota's summers bring unpredictable weather. And the 3M Open has experienced all of it. You've had incredibly hot days. You've had thunderstorms. You've had to get people off the course. You've had delays. How do you go about preparing for any potential weather issues that may arise, which inevitably they will?
Well, we have evacuation committee meetings, first and foremost, and I think our next one is next week. So the 3M Open employs this year probably almost 1,600 volunteers to put on the 3M Open, and a decent portion of that, let's call it 100 or so, are in evac. And so they're stationed around the course in evac vehicles, and when we do that, we get the players out, but then we have separate committees that go into all the hospitality areas to make sure that the fans are evacuated properly if we get to the level where they need to evacuate the course. And that doesn't happen unless we're buttoned up through these evac meetings. And so we have team leads in each of the areas of the course that go and do that, Patrick. And it is just something that, we know is part of the gig. I think there's been one of the 6 years where we have not had an evacuation. So will we have one this year? More than likely. The heat, we answer to that just through our good friends at the City of Blaine and Anoka County and the EMTs around just ensuring that we have misters available or anything like that if we get heat. It looks like we're going to have our first big hot weekend this weekend, but I was saying, to our staff, like, this year looks pretty good, but now we get hit with this. So we'll see what happens there, but I think these contingency plans have to be part of an outdoor event. Anybody that runs an outdoor event, that you have to have these contingency plans in place, and that just doesn't happen without prep a month prior.
We're talking about getting a new generation of kids in the game, and as a golf fan myself, I feel one of the challenges of growing the game is it takes two of your most precious resources. Not only your money, but your time. And I know we've seen a lot of shorter courses come into play here recently. I've heard of people talking about like 3 6s instead of 2 9s. How do you see golf evolving to try and bring that next generation along? It's
a awesome question, one that I don't have an answer for other than to say that I love that everybody's thinking about it because I think it's imperative. As a dad of 4, and my boys are getting older now, I've always thought that 14 holes was ideal, right? I feel it after 14.
Yeah.
That's probably why my scores 15 through 18 are so terrible. But 3 6s is a wonderful idea. I think that anything that can be done to speed up the game, number one, which is happening at the tour level now, right? And it's happening through youth golf, which is great because very rarely do you see 5+ hour rounds now. My kiddos who golf public courses, they're back at a decent time now. And so I think that's happening. I think the more people talk about it, the more that happens. And I just think, things like short courses that are popping up all over the place. We're seeing courses now that are, championship level that are 6,200, 6,300 yards, pars 68, 69. That just adds up, right? It takes away 30 minutes of it. And yeah, time and money are two precious resources, and I think that the powers that be in the game of golf are certainly with you in thinking about that. I don't anticipate any changes on the PGA Tour from a competition perspective, but again, to introduce more fans to the game, you got to be able to get in and out of there in 2.5 hours. Baseball has done it. Basketball has done it. Football doesn't matter because there's only 17 of those, and that's an event anyways. But I think all of the sports that are so cognizant of that have done a wonderful job, and I don't think golf's any different.
I think golf is, it's one of those sports that it is expensive. It does take time. It is incredibly difficult to play. And it goes through these peaks and valleys, right? Just before the pandemic, there were people ready to shovel dirt on the grave of golf and said, millennials will never play this. However, look at us today. It's tough to get a tee time again. Yeah. And I think that that really bodes well for the future of the 3M Open.
100%. I mean, you've probably seen all the numbers that the MGA and the section are releasing each and every year, or just the explosion of golf. locally, but I think most importantly through two different segments. Number one, women, and number two, minorities. And that is absolutely the growth pattern for the game of golf. And that's why we do things like Golf for All Day, so that we can have these kiddos who are reflective of this growing demo come experience what a PGA Tour event. We don't want them to think that it's just 18 holes of boring golf. Like, you're going to come have fun. We have a Leadership That Matters Women's Executive year-long platform where we do 6 golf and networking events that are rooted in golf, but are really around professional and personal networking that get you to understand the game, Golf 101, and appreciate it. And then whatever happens after that is on y'all. And it's amazing where these go. And so, it's been great to just go to local golf courses after you can get a tee time. Yes, it is harder. And see who's around there. It's yes, we're there, our demo's there, but it's just much more diverse, both from, a gender and a race presentation. And I love seeing that.
Yeah. You were earlier when we were talking, you mentioned, we got 12 short weeks this summer here, right? So if you think about this from a fan perspective, as you think about maybe how your marketing's evolved in promoting this tour, we talk about the other teams in town, but one of the precious things here is cabin time. And so how do you guys, I know you only have one Open champion or 3M Open championship each summer. How do you compete to try and get these fans to come out and say, hey, I'm going to come spend it at the 3M Open?
What is the famous question? What, if there's one thing that keeps you up at night, what is it? That's exactly what it is. It is first and foremost in everything that we do. And so when we talk about marketing, we just try to hit these 3 different segments. We try to hit the core golf fan because at the root of it, that is going to be who's coming, right? Second is what I've mentioned, golf curious or event seekers. What's the party atmosphere? What is the event atmosphere that I want to come to that just happens to have a golf tournament there? And then the families, right? And so you talk about cabins. I've said this for my time there. How do we get these families who have a cabin or vacation plans to cross off not all 4 days off their calendar, just cross off 2 days, whether that's Saturday and Sunday or you cross off Thursday and Friday and come to the 3M Open and then go enjoy whatever you're going to do in those other 2 days. And it is something that we've talked to our agency about every year, and they keep on giving us great ideas. And I would say that we're getting better every year. Our attendance rises every year. I think our experience rises every year. I'm anxious to see if we're sitting here in 7 years, what our attendance will look like then. If we don't solve to what that experience is for the non-core golf fans, we'll probably be sitting here and saying the same thing. If we can figure that out and get really nice weather, I think weather is a big part of that too, right? If you're a family of 4 and you see it's going to be 96 degrees, you're probably not going to come. It's just the reality, right? Yeah. And then part of it is just who you're getting from a golfer perspective, and we're going to continue to try to solve for that with the tour around making sure how we're going to get the best players here each and every year.
Fantastic. We just got just a little over a minute left, Mike. I want to talk a little bit about rivalries in golf. In other sports, rivalries really drive a lot of interest. Golf has had its rivalries, arguably Jack and Arnold, Tiger and Phil. Who are the rivals today? And do you feel that that's important to the future of golf and keeping interest in the PGA Tour?
Interesting question. I guess I don't know if there are rivals. I would say the rivalry is probably still LIV versus PGA Tour. When you get to a major and you see John Rahm and Bryson against the PGA Tour players. Do I think that it's imperative? No. Do I think it helps? Absolutely. So could we get to a heel type situation? I mean, Rory's made some news the last week. I don't want Rory to turn heel, but I do think that the more awareness you can bring on the sport, whether that is rivalry or just for the sport in general, the better for tournaments like ours holistically. So not imperative, but certainly would help.
Yeah, terrific. Mike Welch, Tournament Director at the 3M Open. Thanks so much for joining us today on Behind the Game. It's fabulous.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Jeff, great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, come back sometime.
I'd be happy to come
fantastic.
back.
And tell us the dates of the tournament this year and how people can get tickets.
Yeah, July 21st to the 27th. 21st, we're closed to the public. It's open to Pro-Am. If you're interested in Pro-Am, 22nd, the doors open with practice rounds. And then competition 24th to 27th, 3mopen.com is where you get all the tickets. We have 7 different ticket products for you if you're a family event seeker or a core golf fan.
Yeah, fantastic. Mike Welch, thank you. Jeff, thank you. And thank you for watching Behind the Game. We'll see you again next month.